What happens when chaos meets precision? When a maniac encounters a surgeon? One manager opting for unpredictability, leaning on a chaotic approach that had worked wonders in recent weeks, while the other relied on surgical precision, targeting and exploiting every weakness that he could find in the opponent's game. The result? A thrilling encounter that ended with reason prevailing over turbulence. But this is not the full story. To analyze how this explosive battle unfolded, why don't we start from the top? You see, with both sides missing key players through injuries, both managers were forced to make the most of what was left of their squads. Barcelona lined up with a 4-2-3-1 formation using Pedri and De Jong as the double pivot just behind Dani Olmo, while PSG went a bit more traditional with Vitinha, Zaire Emery and Fabian Ruiz in the heart of the midfield. Now pay attention to both midfields because that's where some key outcomes were decided. Now guys, from the first kick of the match, both managers made their intentions known. PSG kicked off the match not with the usual sleek passing but with a long kick into touch. And where did this go? Straight to our left to target Gerard Martin. They actually wanted Barcelona to win the throw-in so they could press us off the ball. So immediately both tactics were revealed. High pressing. But there was a big difference. PSG deployed a zonal overload while Barcelona adopted a man-to-man press. What this meant was PSG could win the ball back and shot pass into our dangerous areas, but it also meant that if we played out of the press, we could switch flanks and have acres of space to attack. And we did that a few times, which meant we were getting some joy on the flanks through Lamine Yamal and Gerard Martin. And it was through the flanks that our first big chance of the game came. Lamine Yamal floats a trademark outside of the right foot pass to Ferran Torres, who goes around the goalkeeper, gets off a shot that was destined for goal until a desperate launch from Cavani kept the ball out as well as the scoreline level. You wonder in retrospect if it could have been better to lay that ball out to Rashford. I guess we'll never know now, would we? But this was signs of things to come because 4 minutes later, Barcelona got the opening goal on the night. But how did this happen? Remember we spoke about Barcelona's man-to-man press, particularly in midfield and attack. Well, look how effective this was because Lamine Yamal intercepts a loose ball from Vitinha. Look at where the press starts is from the midfield. We had Pedri, Dani Olmo and even Ferran Torres putting the press on Vitinha. Now there's no one else in sight to support him, so that forces him to lay the pass out to Nuno Mendes and that allows Lamine Yamal to intercept that ball. Now he lays the ball out for Pedri who then drives forward. Now Pedri's got two options. He can either go on the right to Lamine Yamal or go on the left to Rashford. Now PSG are thinking he wants to go on the right, so that's the obvious choice. And so because of that, he goes to the left first. Very intelligent, but even more intelligent from Rashford to support out that passing lane. And then he lays that pass right through the heart of the defence. And that goes straight on to Ferran Torres, who then taps it in for a goal. Brilliant team goal from Barcelona. But again, it was down to that press and continuously choking that midfield that allows Barcelona to win the ball high up and break on the counter. But it wasn't just the press off the ball. Barcelona were able to keep control of the ball in midfield mainly through Pedri and Frenkie de Jong by constantly playing into the press and backing into PSG. And this is so brilliant because it's so counterintuitive. Because you see, for most teams, they want to find the free man to pass the ball to, meaning that the opponent could easily anticipate the next pass. But with Barcelona, they pass into the marked players, playing in and out of the pressure through quick passing and change of direction, turning away from the pressure and making it difficult for PSG to win possession. It's crazy in imagination but beautiful in execution. It was so effective in keeping us ahead and it worked for 19 whole minutes until Luis Enrique figured out a way around this. What did he do? He deployed this man right here. Because how else do you break through a team that's dominating you with possession football? It's pace, verticality and precision. And who better to do this on the night than Nuno Mendes? He easily broke through our defensive lines with one of those dashing runs. And we've seen him do this a number of times all throughout last season, even at the Nations League final for Portugal against Spain. So Barcelona weren't new to this. But let's take a look at how it all transpired. Look where he gets the ball in his own half. He burst through with pace and Barcelona could not keep up with that pace, guys. I want you to look at Frenkie de Jong and Koundé. Now, as soon as he breaks into Barcelona's half, it's a 3-on-3. Now, Frenkie de Jong spots the danger because Koundé was out of position, so he runs towards the right back position to cover up for Koundé. Now, as soon as Koundé's seen this, he's meant to run towards the inside. Now, Nuno Mendes is intelligent enough. Look what he does. As soon as he sees Frenkie de Jong running towards the right back position, he cuts inside. Look, that's when there's trouble. And that's the point where Koundé should have brought him down. bring him down, because there's the danger now. He's already wrong-footed Frankie de Jong, and that means that it's now a 3-on-2. Effectively, it's now a 3-on-2 because Frankie de Jong is scrambling at that moment. He's trying to turn and keep up with Nuno Mendes, but Nuno Mendes is so intelligent in that play. Now, even more importantly, look at Kubasi. He's the centre-back in that moment. Now, this is where he makes a rookie mistake because he goes to ground. And as soon as you've gone to ground, you've taken yourself out of the equation. You don't go to ground. You're the centre-back. And so look, as soon as he misses that ball, he allows Mayulu to get in front of him. Look, it's almost like a penalty. Mayulu just needed to pick a spot and places it in the back of the net. And it's 1-1, just like that. But again, some bad defensive awareness and some devastating counter-attack from PSG. And Luis Enrique was smart enough to turn to the pace of Nuno Mendes. And that's what hurt Barcelona on the night. Now, as soon as PSG scored this goal, the pendulum swung in their favour and the momentum was suddenly with them. They were putting us under all sorts of pressure and we needed an outlet. Then Hansi Flick struck again. It was a move of tactical genius as he whispered to Lamine Yamal, focus on Nuno Mendes. And it worked so brilliantly because just as PSG deployed Nuno Mendes to disrupt Barcelona's control, Flick deployed Lamine Yamal to neutralise Nuno Mendes. It was back and forth tactical wizardry from both managers that was just brilliant to watch on the night, guys. You couldn't make this up, honestly. Lamine Yamal provided an outlet, constantly going at Nuno Mendes, and in no time forced Mendes into making a tackle that then earns him a yellow card. And from that moment, Enrique knew they were in trouble because how do you finish this game in one piece if you are up against Lamine Yamal with a yellow card hanging over your head for 15 minutes? And please take note of this, guys, because I will come back to this in a second. But we regained control. Pedri came back into the game, and no surprise, it was Pedri who did some lovely work to set off Rashford with a lovely through ball. Rashford goes on a dashing run, destroys Kubani, but unfortunately had his low cross deflected for a corner. We finished the half strongly and didn't allow PSG to build off their momentum and potentially turn the game on its head. But again, it's that quick, chaotic reaction from Flick that spots the impending danger and neutralises it with Lamine Yamal immediately. Now, for me, this is where the game was won. Because you know the popular saying in football that the first half is played by the players and the second half by the managers. Well, this game was a pure example of that because in the second half, only one manager showed up, and it was Luis Enrique, as he made tactical decisions that ensured his side came out as worthy winners in the end. And the first one was beating Barcelona's press. Now, how did he do this? Now, remember in the first half, I mentioned that Barcelona had control of the midfield. Enrique realised this, and then in order to overcome that weakness in midfield, he switched from a zonal press to a man-to-man marking system, which meant that they could stretch their play and bypass the midfield entirely by floating long balls over the top for the attackers to chase. It was the perfect way to neutralise Pedri and de Jong, who then spent most of their time chasing aerial balls and trying to keep the ball on the ground, while Mbaye, Hakimi and Barcola were putting Barcelona's defence under so much pressure with devastating pace on the flanks. PSG were back in control. Now here was the defining moment for me because I think PSG were fortunate to finish this game with 11 men on the pitch. And I say it's a defining moment because if the referee showed enough character to issue a second yellow card to Nuno Mendes for his foul on Lamine Yamal right at the edge of the box, this game would have ended in a different outcome. But he doesn't do that. And that hands PSG a get out of jail free card, which Luis Enrique exploited to the fullest because he made the second tactical change that killed off the game, and that was bringing on Lucas Hernandez for Ibrahim Mbaye. Hernandez slots into the left-back position, allowing Nuno Mendes to move up as a left-wing forward, escaping Lamine Yamal entirely for the rest of the night, as well as the further possibility of a sending off. This not only gave Koundé another headache to deal with in defence, but gave Lamine Yamal another fresh pair of legs to handle in attack. Guys, this completely neutralised our right wing while strengthening PSG's position in the game. And you could tell by how the rest of the game went. It was PSG back in control, winning the ball in midfield, moving the ball around quickly, and Barcelona were on the back foot once again. But Hansi Flick tries to be astute on the night by bringing in Lewandowski, Marc Casado and Balde for Dani Olmo, Rashford and Gerard Martin. This gave us two centre forwards and Balde out on the left, with Casado filling in left back when needed. But guys, this might have worked if only Flick was brave enough to leave Pedri on the pitch, which was his single biggest mistake on the night because as soon as Pedri was taken off, just like we saw against Inter Milan last season, our entire midfield collapsed. Guys, the importance of Pedri in this team cannot be overstated. You see, without Rashford and Rafinha at this point, How do you get the ball up to Lewandowski? If you're going to bring on Lewandowski, you need a runner to take the ball to him. That's how he's always played. Lamine was already choked on the right, so you needed a player on the other flank for the switch. This is how Barcelona have always played to great success. It's either Thierry Henry, Neymar or Ronaldinho. Somebody needs to be on the left in a 4-3-3, especially if you're going to beat Hakimi. The only other outlet that could have done this was Pedri, and Flick, in the desperate attempt to inject some energy back into the side, brings on Bernard in his place. Lewandowski was starved of any sort of service in attack. PSG sensed this and they simply came at us again and again and again. And we eventually gave up the ghost in the 90th minute when Gonzalo Ramos latched onto a lovely weighted low cross from Hakimi to carefully pick a spot in the bottom right corner past Chesney. Heartbreaking stuff really, I'm not gonna lie. But look at Balde's starting position on the goal with playing the high line. Remember, I spoke about this with Eric Garcia against Newcastle. It's very poor from the defense once again. And you can see Flick screaming from the touchline. Again, it's the lack of defensive awareness from the fullback to pick up the winger. You need to pick up your winger. You're the left back. Now look at Balde and Kubasi. Look at both their positions before Vitinha lays that pass to Hakimi. Kubasi is the furthest man on the left, while Balde is inside of him. That's the first mistake, positional awareness. And mind you guys, this is the 90th minute. You're caught out of position in defense in the 90th minute. Now look at when Balde spots the pass. It's already too late. And he knows, because look at how desperate he looks. It's already too late. Look at acres of space for Hakimi, the best right back in the world, and you give him that much space on your left. Look, it's too easy. There's nothing we could have done. Nothing we could have done in this situation, because look, Gonzalo Ramos just needs to stay level with the ball. That's all he needs to do. And Barcelona's backline are not quick, so it was easy for Hakimi to just pick up that pass, and Gonzalo Ramos was on hand to finish up with a simple tap-in. But again, it's that lack of defensive awareness for Barcelona, and they're looking to the linesman for offside, but it's not offside. You can't be playing to the offside trap. It's 90 minutes on the clock. Have you not learned anything from Inter? Guys, this is what I call a self-inflicted wound. But then again, it's still back to taking Pedri off. We lost all coordination, we lost the midfield, and we're still pushing high up the pitch. That's a tactical error, and we paid for it on the night. Really heartbreaking, I'm not going to lie. Now, I don't care what anyone says. Barcelona losing to PSG at home is unacceptable. It is just unacceptable, guys. And I know there was a bit of controversy whether PSG should have finished the game with 11 men on the night because of the foul on Lamine Yamal. But overall, once again, it's the naivety of youth costing us in the Champions League. And I feel like Luis Enrique was a bit more precise on the night than Hansi Flick. But it's not just about what I think, guys. I want to know how you feel. Do you agree with my analysis? Did you spot anything that I might have missed? Let me know in the comment section. And if you enjoy videos like this, consider subscribing to the channel so you get notified anytime another one drops. And you can also help the channel grow in the process. As much as I am disappointed in this loss, I believe we can learn and bounce back just like PSG did last season and went on to win the Champions League. But until next time, guys, see you soon, and Visca El Barça.